please welcome to our dais the president of the University of Pennsylvania, Dr. Amy Gutmann, and the anchor of 6ABC, Jim Gardner.
Good to see you.
Dr. Gutmann.
Good to see you, Jim.
Good to see you, too. A couple of weeks ago, we covered the ceremonial dedication of a new parcel of land, 23 acres, that Penn owns. And it was the kickoff of Pennovation, which is a clever marketing device, innovation, Pennovation. What is Pennovation, and how important is that to you, and how important will it be over the next 10 years?
So Pennovation is our name for the site that we have over the river from our main campus. And it's really a site for what I call an innovation ecosystem, to bring together the really wonderful discoveries of many of our faculty with venture capitalists, with people who want to bring it into the market. And it's very important because we think of Penn as having innovation in our DNA. After all, our founder was Benjamin Franklin. He was the first to discover the electrical capacities of lightning, and when he did that, he invented the lightning rod. So we want to show how important it is that universities make the discoveries that then can make a difference in society. So in the last 6 years alone, the number of commercialization agreements that Penn faculty have had has gone from 46 to 327. It's a 600% increase. And Pennovation, this is going to be a building that we're now renovating for flying robots that Vijay Kumar has, which if you haven't seen a video or seen them in person, you must see them. How many have seen Vijay's flying robots? They're just phenomenal. We now have a plant ecosystem with Dr. Henry Daniel, who is looking to discover the possibility of plant-based vaccines, which would revolutionize the treatment of, actually the prevention of disease in countries that can't afford refrigeration. So it's really important that we do this, both for maximizing what our faculty can do with their research, but as importantly, maximizing what Penn can do for our city.
Tell me who will be the innovators. Faculty, students, private company, entrepreneurs?
All of the above.
All of the above.
So what we found out very fundamentally is, and the reason I say all of the above in this multiple choice test, that would be the correct answer. The reason, there you go, the reason is that it's a fundamental truth historically that great discoveries are collaborations. Walter Isaacson, that's the theme of The Innovators, his latest book, and I, as you know, interviewed Walter at the groundbreaking for Pennovation. And it takes more than two to tango here. It really takes great faculty. Some of our students are amazing in their early discoveries, but they couldn't do it without the faculty who mentor them. And it also takes external support. We can't depend just on government. We are at Penn a huge research engine, and last year alone we had $836 million of sponsored research at Penn. But that's not enough to actually bring great discoveries to market, so all of the above.
You talk about bringing great discoveries to market. This benefits Penn as well. even from a financial standpoint, does it not? There'll be patents eventually, there'll be revenue to be made.
From your mouth to God's ears. Seriously, I don't think God has bigger things to worry about, but our country doesn't have bigger things to worry about, actually. This will be key to showing how our country can move forward. And we're a nonprofit, so anything that we get, any returns we get, and I do hope there are increasing returns, and certainly there have been over the past 10 years, but anything we get, we plow back into the research engine. And so you think of the research engine getting stronger and stronger and faster, and moving that research into products, discoveries, life-saving treatments for people. And what you said at the end is very important. You can't predict what will move out there. And it's really a mistake to invest in this at a university level as if we could pick the winners and the losers.
You can only know who wins and loses in retrospect.
In retrospect, right. You can be very wise.
Have to cast a wide net.
Right.
I've asked you who will be the innovators. Let's talk for a second about who won't be the innovators. STEM has become a real buzzword in the academy, in government, in the marketplace. Only 26% of the STEM workforce. I'm assuming everybody knows what STEM means: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Only 26% of the STEM workforce are women. A lot of reasons why. How much of a problem is that? And can Penn or places like Penn make a difference?
So it's a huge problem, and every man and woman in this audience who is in the university or in industry should be cultivating, mentoring young women and encouraging them to go, if they have the talent, which many of them do, and I would venture to say as many do, as men do, we need that. We need to cultivate everybody's talent in this country, because it's not, we're just not going to succeed. So what are some of the things you can do?
Forgive me for interrupting. Yeah. Why is that? Why are only 26% of the workforce women? Does that start in grade school, in middle school, where teachers begin to dissuade girls from following perhaps their own interests in science, and then there are other reasons along the way? How do you attack that problem from the origins of it?
So for sure it starts very young, and you have to attack it from the beginning, but there's no, as girls get older, we know that the pipeline starts narrowing and there are more and more discouragements. So my daughter is a chemist, and the older she became and the more she pursued chemistry, I'd say the more aware she became of the discouragements and the implicit discriminations against women. But it starts very young. I remember when my daughter was in grade school, and there were a small group of girls who were really good at math, and the school, which was an excellent school, because there were only a handful of girls who made it through the sieve, they were going to not have the advanced math class. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure the people who decided that were not explicitly sexist. They just didn't realize what they were doing. It was the only time I ever intervened as a parent. I said, you can't do this. And the principal of the school, who was a mathematician, to his credit, he volunteered to teach the math course because they had decided not to hire the advanced math teacher. So there are huge problems, and we haven't moved forward as we should as a society. Computer science now has fewer women majoring in it percentage-wise than it did 20 years ago. We at Penn, our engineering school, has really taken great steps, as has our business school. Engineering and Wharton both have taken great steps and have among the highest percentage of women.
I was going to ask you if you thought, or if you have seen evidence of gender bias in your STEM departments, because clearly it exists in a lot of universities even today, where women feel, the women who do get hired in these departments feel disenfranchised, feel excluded by the male network of STEM scientists.
So we track gender and minority equity year after year, and we now do it department by department. And if we see it, we come down quickly on it. So the answer is no, I don't see it. There may be things I don't see. I wouldn't be at all surprised. But we've made enormous progress at the faculty level and at the student level on bringing young women into majors and into the faculty. There's a lot more progress to be made.
We've talked about women. Let's talk about underrepresented minorities. The numbers of women are impressive, and I mean that in a negative way. The numbers for underrepresented minorities, African American and Hispanic, are even worse.
Yeah.
How do you approach that problem? And again, can Penn make a difference in this area?
So first, can Penn make a difference? Absolutely. We can't make all the difference, but that's no excuse for not making as much of a difference as we can. And it begins with programs. We do outreach programs to the Philadelphia schools for women and underrepresented minorities. We bring them to campus. We have summer programs for them, and that makes a huge, huge difference. And we also have recruited more and more women and underrepresented minorities into STEM fields. I actually like to think of it as STEAM now, which to add the arts, because I don't know if any of you noticed, but there, thank you. So here's an existence proof of how important adding the A in there is. So this year, for the second year in a row, Penn had a MacArthur Genius Award winner. And for the second year in a row, she was a woman, which I guess is logically, she has to be a woman, right? But this year, the award winner's name is Danielle Bassett. She goes by Danny Bassett. She is an engineer. She was trained as a physicist. And one of her distinctive contributions is to show scientists and engineers how important it is to communicate discoveries, even to your fellow scientists and engineers, through art and really vivid imagery. And that, I think, is a model for almost every, going back to innovation moving forward. Think about Steve Jobs, what his contribution was. It wasn't technical engineering. It was the artistry of Apple. And that's going to be just really important for us moving forward. Now I'll get back. You can
Well, I was going to say you led me into my next line of questioning,
there
but
you go.
but
See,
no, but
I'm happy for you to answer my questions too.
no. One thing that stands out, and I do want to move on because I'm looking at the clock and time moves so quickly when I'm talking to you.
You know what I like to say, flattery will get you everywhere, Jim.
I have a young son. Will it get him admitted to Penn?
Well, high five. Not everywhere.
Not everything. There are limits. There are limits.
Every generalization is false, including that one.
You take the cohort of low-income high achievers in high school.
Yeah.
The top 4% of achievement kids who are low income of that group, 2 out of 3 of those kids don't even apply to selective colleges for a multiplicity of reasons. So you are denying, I don't mean you, but the system therefore denies science, society, great untapped reservoirs of talent. Same thing with women who don't go into STEM. Again, I know that you have tremendous outreach in the underrepresented minority community, but clearly it's not getting through to a vast number of high-achieving, low-income kids, frankly, who selective colleges aren't even on their radar screen, and they're not on the radar screens of their high school counselors. How do you break through that fog?
So first of all, I think this is one of the greatest injustices and stupidities of our society, frankly. I think we are not going to be a smart society, let alone a wise society, until we really figure out how to make that American dream and opportunity real for every single one of those kids. And so how do you do it? Well, one of the ways you do it is actually very personal, and it's up close and personal. So we have put more and more resources, and kudos to our admissions office for being passionate as I am about it. We've put more and more resources to just going out to those schools and telling those students that we want them. And it's shown in our numbers. We now have 1 out of every 9 of our incoming freshmen will be the first in their families to graduate from college. And thank you. And we have increased every year the number of low-income and underrepresented minorities. So now and it's still small. We've gone from 10% to 16% Pell Grant students. We are the largest of the Ivy Plus groups. We have the largest number of Pell students. Those are the low-income students. But we also look for middle-income students, because that doesn't count, as you know, those students who come from families who earn over about $55,000, $60,000 a year. The other thing that we've done, which I have to say is the single most effective thing we've done, is we have set a financial aid policy, which is the simplest to understand and state, and it's all grant, no loan, based on need. So we are now the largest university in America to be all grant, no loan for all of our undergraduates with demonstrated financial need. And thank you. But that's really important for a number of reasons. One is that American families don't have savings, and that has changed dramatically from 50 years ago to now. But the other is that if you want low-income students to have the same opportunities as upper-income students when they graduate, you had better not saddle them with huge amounts of debt. So there are a lot of things we are doing and we have to keep doing, because the signals that those low-income students are getting often from their parents and their local communities is there isn't opportunity for you. It's just the opposite signal I got. I came from a low-income family, and my parents just kept saying, anything you want to do, you can do. And I remember my mother told me afterwards, my father died when I was in high school, and she said to me afterwards, she said, you know, Dad kept saying that to you, and I kept saying to him privately, how are we going to afford it? He said, never mind, we'll find. You know, and I got a full scholarship to college. My parents could never have paid for me. So this is a huge, huge problem now, because the signals are just the opposite to most of these kids. So the outreach we do, the financial aid we give, the opportunities that we show when we bring students who have succeeded at Penn back to communities, and it all starts right here in Philadelphia, by the way. The more students, we have a semifinalist for the Rhodes, and I won't embarrass her by giving her name now, because I'm sending her my good luck vibes that she's going to have the interview in a week. Her mother is on, food stamps. Mm-hmm. She's a Pell recipient, and she's just phenomenal. And if we hadn't done outreach to her, there's no way she would have thought Penn wanted her. And not only do we want her, but we're the richer, we're the better because of those students.
What is a MOOC?
What is a MOOC? A MOOC is a massively open online course, and MOOCs have been tremendously hyped by your profession, if I may say so, but not by you. But I am a believer in how important they are, not for replacing campus-based learning, which I would.
And I want to ask you about that.
You can ask me about that, but for adding two things. One, for adding to what the campus-based learning experience can be, so you can put some of the more basic stuff online and your students can then do more interaction with the faculty, but also for reaching out to massive numbers of people who could not or wouldn't want to have the campus-based learning experience.
Only problem with all of this that I've read about is that 80% of those individuals who take advantage of MOOCs, whether it's Coursera, which I guess is the company you use, or others, 80% of the MOOC devotees already have a degree.
Yeah.
So if the design was to expose people who would have no way to take part in that kind of pedagogy, the fact is that the people who aren't taking advantage are people who already have degrees.
So a lot of the people, so just take Penn's MOOCs. We now have, the last count, and it increases every week. The last count, we had 2.7 million subscribers to our MOOCs. These are courses that are done by our faculty. They're very high quality courses. And somebody who doesn't have a high school education or much of a college education is not going to be able to get through these courses. And by the way, only 3 to 5% of the people who take the courses complete them, but just do the math on that. That's still multiples of the students who we educate. So that's why I said they were hyped at the beginning. This is not a way of getting around the fact that there are millions of young people around the world, hundreds of millions of young people around the world who are not getting a basic education. Khan Academy does some of that, and it does it really well. But it doesn't do it just online. It also combines it with interaction. And there is no substitute for the motivating force of being in the presence of a teacher.
Which is why I would like to know if Penn, and some schools have already done this, even some small liberal arts schools. I read yesterday that Bowdoin College has 50 kids signed up for a course in financial accounting, which is being offered by a professor at Dartmouth, and 50 kids are signed up. 21 members of the faculty have already signed a petition objecting to this. And I think there's some validity there, because if you spend $60,000 a year to go to a place like Bowdoin, which is a small liberal arts college, you expect, they pride themselves, they sell themselves on that close interaction with faculty, small classes and relationships with faculty. And now you've got 50 Bowdoin students who are sitting in front of a computer listening to a professor at Dartmouth telling them about financial accounting. Isn't there something wrong with that?
So we don't do that, and
you have no plans to do that?
And we have no plans to do that, and I don't know the Bowdoin case, but what students should be expecting when they come to a campus is interaction with high quality, wonderful, path-breaking research faculty who also are dedicated to teaching. And MOOCs are totally consistent with that. I just want, everything that has good uses could also be put to bad uses. And so we have a faculty member who has a joint appointment. He's a Penn Integrates Knowledge professor. He has a joint appointment in arts and sciences and in engineering. His name is Robert Greist, and he's a passionate teacher, and he is passionate about MOOCs. He has put a single variable calculus course online. Philadelphia high schools are using it with teachers teaching in the classroom. Rob uses it, and he's actually conducting an experiment, asking students whether they want to be in the flipped classroom or the traditional classroom, and seeing which students like better and which they learn more from. I think we need that kind of research into what works educationally, and we shouldn't be afraid of learning online as long as it's not, as I began by saying, not a substitute for that interaction with faculty, which I don't know, I would be really interested in seeing a show of hands. How many I asked a group of CEOs at a Wall Street Journal summit in Washington, how many of you, because you're very busy people, would have preferred doing online courses to the college degree you took? Or how many of you think it will substitute? Not a single hand went up. So how many of you would rather take a course online than a course from a Penn or Drexel or Temple, you name it, professor? Nobody, right? I mean, anybody? No.
Half of you are being disingenuous.
Right. So I think it's a mistake of not only what you pay for, but just a basic mistake of human psychology not to recognize how motivating it is to be in the presence of somebody who really cares about her subject matter and cares about motivating you to learn.
I have a long question, but I want a short answer because I want to get to one other thing.
Okay.
And we only have 3:45 to go. Undergraduate by the name of Graham Slattery, undergraduate at Harvard, which means he must have been rejected by Penn because why else would he be at Harvard? Wrote in the Harvard Political Review, and this goes back to something that we started to talk about before, and this is a little long. In every mainstream American politics, the idea of higher education is nothing more than a vocational tool has taken root. College, after all, is meant to prepare one for a career, and a literature degree fails catastrophically in this measure. According to the prevailing sentiment, the government should herd those who are dabbling in soft intellectual subjects to those areas of academia that will bolster American GNP. From the viewpoint of the short-sighted economist, this command and control style of education is a boon. From the viewpoint of the humanist, however, the kind of thinker the government is trying to purge, this vocational strategy is a social disaster because it treats students not as human beings, but merely as human capital. We were talking before about this focus, almost an obsession on STEM fields. Are we offering up the humanities and the passion that people feel about literature and language and art? Are we offering that up on the altar of technology and engineering?
If we are, it's a really stupid thing to do. As you know, I served on the National Commission for the Humanities and Social Sciences, and I thought the commission issued a really powerful report on how important the humanities and social sciences are, both to individual flourishing and to what makes this nation great. So you said you wanted a short answer. So I began as a math major at that institution that young man is writing from. And
you were rejected from Penn as well.
I was, yes. And then I switched to an interdisciplinary social science and humanities major, which still exists, and they asked me back to give their 25th anniversary keynote, and it's inauspiciously titled Social Studies. And some of those, Harvard Crimson once had an editorial begging social studies to change its name because it wasn't good for the job market to have a degree in social studies. So I said, get over it. In my keynote, I said, get over it. I learned so much in that interdisciplinary major. I still have capacities in math, and I think it's good to be able to be numerate and literate at the same time. But as I was telling Jim before, and I think this is really important for all of our students to know, if you can't communicate well, if you can't write well, there is no profession that you are going to excel in. And that's why it is so important for our country to continue lauding the humanities and supporting them. And by the way, it doesn't cost that much to support the humanities, but it costs something, and we've got to do it. And we encourage our students at Penn, whether they major in engineering, we don't only encourage them, we require them, whether they major in engineering or Wharton or nursing, they have to take a lot of arts and sciences. And that's, when I go to China and India, that's the question I get asked by students, by faculty, and by administrators alike, and by the politicians, which is, how can we teach creativity the way you are? And the answer is simple. It's 3 words, arts and sciences.
What do you hope Penn will do better in 10 years? We're talking about a 10-year period. What do you hope that Penn will do better in 10 years that it doesn't do particularly well now?
Okay, until you said that it doesn't do particularly well now, I was going to say
By
everything.
comparison.
We should do everything better. I think that I would like to see our Pennovation Center at Pennovation Works take off. We have increased, more than doubled startups, but I would like to see that take off. I would like Penn to be a great place for all faculty and students who are interested in following the Ben Franklin model to have the support to do it. At the same time, I would like to see Penn be more and more diverse. And
even amongst its faculty. Everybody talks about student diversity, but faculty diversity might be just as important.
Right. So over the last, over my time as president, we've increased women faculty by 16% and minority faculty, underrepresented minority faculty by 35%. We began with a higher base with women, and we still have a long way to go. When I came as president, you will know the answer to this question. So how many of our medical school departments were chaired by women? And we have half of our faculty is medical school faculty, 0. And now we have a significant number of women chairs. But are there enough? No. We had to, this is where you have to change some practices. Being chair of a department in medicine, in a lot of schools of medicine, is a lifetime. You get it, and it's yours for life. And
it's like being a Supreme Court justice.
It is. But we need to, so we changed that, there are terms, and we need to do better on that. I really believe that the key for Penn being better is to want to be better in everything we do. And as I said when I received the Americanism Award from the ADL, we have to do what we do, not because it's good for Penn, but because it's good for our city, society, and the world. And there's a lot more to be done, a lot more to be done.
Amy Gutmann is a political philosopher. I actually read her book on the spirit of compromise. If Congress would just listen to you, we might all be better off in Washington. She is now one of the renowned college administrators, university administrators in America. But what impresses me more than anything else is that the students at Penn, which is a larger school than some of the very small, fuzzy-wuzzy liberal arts colleges in the Northeast and in the Midwest.
You're getting yourself in a lot of trouble.
No. The fact of the matter is that Penn undergraduates love Amy Gutmann. Oh. They say, "Hi, Amy," and she's at their events and at their games, and you have managed, I think, from what you can do on a personal level to make Penn feel a little fuzzy-wuzzy, and I think you deserve tremendous credit for that.
Thank you.
Amy Gutmann,
thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.